Greetings, YouTube. As those who've been here a while know, I collect role-playing games, and those shelves back there are full of them. And some of the games on that shelf are from Steve Jackson, and therefore the Car Wars setting. And the Car Wars setting is a post-apocalyptic environment where the energy resource wars have taken over, gas has essentially ceased to exist, the United States has become balkanized, and the political structure of the landscape has completely collapsed. There are no rules on the road, essentially, and the only way you can get from point A to point B and do so and stay alive is in heavily armored and armed vehicles. Now, it was grown out of a miniatures game, so it's a stretch, you'd think. And yet it depresses me on how many elements of different dystopian worldviews that have shown up in fiction in the last 100 years seem to be coming true now. And one of the things that got to me in the Car Wars setting, rather, is that they discussed New Hampshire. And New Hampshire's main concentration of people is in an area they called the Combine, which is from Nashua to Concord, New Hampshire. It's essentially become one megalopolis, one micro megacity, essentially. And the rest of the state, for the most part, has been abandoned because of inaccessibility. The roads just aren't in good enough condition, and people are left on their own, those that stay up there. And some of the people have been driven literally into the forest, and they're known as forest folk. And they comment the fact that every spring, when the snows recede, you occasionally find forest folk that didn't make it through the winter. Of course, there probably wouldn't be many snows left. Last year, we didn't really have any in New Hampshire. I get the feeling that our ski industry is not going to be faring well this year either. And I always thought that was an incredibly outlier of a story. There'd be no possible way that America would ever allow itself to get to the point where we drove people to live in the forests off the land like 18th century and 19th century pioneers. That just wouldn't happen. Except here I am with an article talking about how the homeless have been driven from many city municipalities, and the only place they have left to go are the state and federal parklands, because there just is nowhere else for them to live. The move along philosophy has just kept pushing them further away and isolating them, because as they get further and further away, that means they have less and less access to whatever few remaining social safety net options are available to them. And then we blame them. We blame them for failing to live up to the American dream when the American dream was always nothing but a fantasy. We blame them for being the victims of the political structure created by conservatives and the business community in America over the past 40 or 50 years. We blame them for buying into the lie of the American dream and being the sucker holding the bag when the recession and the real estate bubble burst. We blame them for being mentally ill. We blame them for being marginalized populations. How dare you do that? We blame them for reminding us that none of us is far away from being destitute, from being broke and homeless and having no options left, because in America we have this twisted libertarian idea that everybody can just grab themselves by the bootstraps and forge ahead, and that's absolute and utter bullshit. We either work together or we die alone. And this nation was founded on the concept of we the people. And yet we rather allow the U.S. military to piss away trillions of dollars than invest that money to make sure that every single person in America has food and shelter, health care, and an education. The bare minimum any civilized nation should provide for its residents. And yet we don't do that. We drive the people out of the communities. And now we drive them into the forests. I don't have a pithy ending here. I'm just disgusted.